Hi, everybody. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa. We're still not streaming on Twitter. I need to look into getting a premium account, I guess. It's their platform, and if I want to be on it, I guess I've got to pay for it. So, but I will be reposting this there later. Hopefully, we get our crew jumping in the chat. I'm going to share this one more place, but we'll bring back Dr. McDaniel to talk about the white box theory right after this. So give us a like and share the video. Welcome back, Dr. McDaniel. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Good. So you're going to share a little bit of, would this be called protocol or
Well,
testing?
it's all interlaced.
Okay.
Well,
tell us a little bit about it.
I hold in my hand.
Oh, we can't see you, or it must be green.
There it is.
I see
it's a notebook that's, I'd say about 2 pounds of paper and about an inch thick. That is a protocol, a research protocol. And that's what this story is about in this lecture. And actually, I did a requested lecture for the United Nations Office for Food and Agriculture in Rome, Italy, for one of their sponsored conferences. And the basic title was a means for mass populations to have improved health status at a safe, effective, and economical level. A bishop of the Indian Catholic Church, which is not related to Rome, appeared in my lobby in my office, and he grasped that he had done a pamphlet that in India they have more people living in abject poverty, less than $1 a day, foraging on the trash piles of India, more million living than less than $1 a day, and that the government is responsible for their health care. But the truth of the matter is there are not the resources in India to build the medical schools, train the doctors and nurses, build the hospitals and clinics, maintain this personnel, much less practice typical Western medicine and diagnostic and therapeutic procedures. The economics just doesn't exist. And he saw my paper for the United Nations as a means to get safe, effective, and especially economical management of health. And that's what this is all about. Okay. And he was in my office twice. The first time he grasped this, and he went to wealthy Indian migrants that had done quite well, tried to get them to donate funds to do this under the church and try to help these people. And nobody wanted to donate to it. And then he went to the Arab immigrants, where the royal families have all this oil money, and they're responsible for the health of all their citizens in their country. Mm-hmm. It basically says, if you'll give me the money to do this test project in Kerala, India, I'll give all the data to you, and you can use it to reduce your cost for health in your countries. Well, they turned him down. And as far as I know, he has retired, and nothing has happened. But we will go through what we had planned to do and why we're going to do it. And I hope it will be informative to those that want to follow this major project that never got off the ground.
Yeah.
So let's go to the first slide. You see there in
Oh, I'm sorry.
quotations a white box effect. I was the medical director for an international dietary supplement company for at least 10 years. And we had untold numbers, thousands of people that added the more comprehensive nutrition that was built around the active ingredient in the aloe vera leaf gel that was developed by Carrington Laboratories in the previous decade. And one of the things that happened is we had people that would say have 5 or more different health challenges. I call them challenges and deviations from normal health because it's against the law in the United States to do anything to treat, cure, or improve an abnormal health condition with anything but an FDA approved drug. So I never try to avoid using any diagnostic disease or syndrome terms, just say deviations from normal health. And
Mhm.
behind this, the fact is that our genes that control cellular synthesis of bioactive molecules that conduct the biochemistry of life are all designed to try to move the metabolism of all the cells and all organs to a normal, balanced, harmonious zone that is not a new idea. In fact, is Dr. Hans Selye, considered the father of human physiology, called this state of balance in cells homeostasis, balance and harmony. Well, these people that had multiple deviations, lo and behold, they would slowly improve each one of these, and it seemed like the most life threatening deviation from normal health would be the first one to respond. And few people realize that before antibiotics and sulfa were discovered, that infectious disease was the number one cause of death in the United States. But now it's down much lower than that, and it's more chronic diseases associated with aging that are taking us out of this dimension. Well, this seemingly internal intelligence to start improving the most life threatening and just tick down until at the end of it, things like toe itch or jock itch or dandruff were the last things to improve by more comprehensive nutrition because that's what the genes are programmed for. And I might add that the program in our every cell in your body makes the programming in your cell phone or your slate or your laptop or your desktop computer look like kindergarten scribble compared to what is naturally programmed into the genes, the 23 pairs or the 46 chromosomes that are in every cell in your body. Well, one of the things was that with all these people that were living in abject poverty, it would be worthwhile to do a study. And the bishop said, we have a clinic in Kerala, India, where we can do this. That's Kerela, Kerala, that we can test this white box effect. And if that was just a theory and a name I gave it, that from multiple observations, but it needed to be tested. And if it worked, we would go to with this information to all the states in India and start helping these people in a safe, effective, and economical manner. So the way we had it outlined is if we'll go to the second slide, uh, you see a laptop computer of one of my sons, and you open it up, and in here we would put a form for a review of all systems of the body. So on the first visit, we would get a profile of what all the problems the individual had so that we could call it up periodically and check just what responds when you improve more comprehensive nutrition built around the active ingredient in aloe vera leaf gel, which we had found to be acetylated mannose, a sugar for short called ace-mannin. The next slide. This shows the notebook that I had in my hand. And when you open it up, not only does the first part of it tell you that first thing is that Hippocrates, who's given the term as the father of Western medicine, if you look for his quotations on your web, you'll find out that he wrote, quote, if we could provide to the individual the optimal nutrition and exercise, comma, not too much, not too little, comma, we would have provided the safest pathway to good health. And beneath that, he wrote, let your food be your medicine and your medicine your food. Well, that's on the first page of this notebook labeled a unique solution to the global health crisis. And the tabs that you see behind there are published papers and survey results of various things that you can be in the computer about problems that are deviations from normal health that the individual has. So we put in these tabs these different conditions that we'll say, and the number 4 in these tabs was our published Alzheimer's study, where the individuals that had lost memory and cognition had it come back and improve. In the number 5 tab, it has the paper that is a syllabus about finding out in Canada that we were releasing millions of adult stem cells from the patient's own bone marrow that could migrate into the different cells of the different organs, and where they were poorly functioning cells or aged cells or even dead cells, apparently, such as those that were in Alzheimer's in the brain, that a stem cell migrates in, differentiates just like in the embryo, and restores the function of that organ. The 6th tab is about the experiences that Texas A&M and animals with National Institutes of Health survey models to try to find in plants anti-cancer molecules. And then also a abstract from an oncologist that was Mayo trained that he said that to combine standard treatment protocols with this more comprehensive nutrition built around the active ingredient from the aloe plant, the ace-mannin, he called it a revolution in the quality of life while being treated and the long-term results. And the next tab is all the information we have about a big group of patients that are called by the World Health Organization a silent epidemic of type 2 diabetes, uncontrolled glucose levels in the blood. The next thing is the study that was done in 670 people that were over 50 years of age, and we added this more comprehensive nutrition to their diet, and they went back to physical and mental activities that they had given up 5, 10, 15 years before because they just couldn't handle it due to aging, and they were restored. This nutrition did was to reverse objective biomarkers associated with aging that had been developed by Tufts Medical School in Boston and Johns Hopkins for the federal government when they discovered that after World War II that people on Social Security were not dying like they had before. They were living longer, and it was destroying all the amortization tables for Social Security. So that's what's in that tab. Then the next tab that have here is the studies that multiple private schools and even psychiatrists and psychologists had done, and even a group down in Australia, that by more comprehensive nutrition, that attention deficit disorder and attention deficit hyperactive disorder, that is virtually an epidemic in children, are corrected. And I ask you at this point, if adding to the diet these molecules that are lower missing in the modern food chain, and these children get out of special education and their behavior and their ability to learn and remember improves with more comprehensive nutrition, I ask the question, do you really think they have a drug deficiency in their brain? Well, we have this tab in this protocol that supports that with this more comprehensive nutrition, if individuals have problems with attention deficit disorder and disorder, that it improves with nutrition. Then the next tab is about the experiences with autoimmune diseases. Now, this is where, for some reason or another, that individuals develop an autoantibody that attaches to the cells of their body, and there are about 80 different kinds of cells in the body. And so, depending on which tissue these autoantibodies attach to, you have about 80 syndromes. Well, we have the papers there of how this improves. And then number 11 is the uh, published paper from a school in Chicago that a church had put together of children that had fallen through all the cracks in the state schools, public school system. And they had a little school there in the church called Israel Academy. And it has the improvement in 41 children, that all you did is add more comprehensive to their diet, and about half of them got off of drugs that they had them on. And the most important thing that happened that is practical is that in this environment, which was the largest public housing project that the HEW had built, when they had parents' night, nobody showed up. Well, after they started this more comprehensive nutrition, every child had a representative from their family that showed up, and they were asking, what in the world are you doing up here at this school? My son or daughter comes home, gets out their books, does their homework. They don't fight with their younger or older brothers and sisters. They don't fight with the neighbor kids. We ask them to do something, they do it. We ask them to quit doing something, and lo and behold, they quit. This is not my typical response of my child. What are you doing up here at the school? Well, is this papers in this tab show? All we did was give them more comprehensive nutrition. The next tab is the very intense work that was done, particularly at Texas A&M School of Veterinary Medicine, that Carrington Laboratories, that was sponsoring all the, they had raised $20 million to develop a new drug against viruses. And this is the antiviral activity that we found out that was different than any other source, because most antibiotics and antivirals interfere with the biochemistry of the infectious agent. Well, this approach with more comprehensive nutrition doesn't interfere with the biochemistry of the infectious agent. It boosts and improves the immune response of the host. All the host defenses, whether it be cellular or humoral, where the antibodies are boosted to a level that it doesn't matter what kind of infection you have, that the body can handle it and either prevent it from getting infections, or clear the infection once you get it. And then the last tab in this support for this protocol of setting up this study in these multiple individuals by doing their review system of their body is the results of a investigator from Russia that came and spent 2 days with me wanting to know what we were doing, because behind the Iron Curtain, they use the term adaptogen instead of a trying to think of it. I'm blocking. I guess I'm getting old and ugly.
I'm trying to remember the adaptogen. Was that a transmitter or trans?
They just called it that the body adapts to, and it was actually their formulation was very similar to what we developed here at Carrington Laboratories, built around the activity of the aloe plant. I was just trying to think of dietary supplements, the ingredients of dietary supplements that support the body's biochemistry. They called an adaptogen. And particularly in this section, you find out that when they went to Mexico City and they set all types of new records at the Olympics with their athletes, that they were all taking the Russian adaptogen, which boosts the body's athletic performance. In other words, all human performance, even in school. And what it is, it doesn't matter what system of the body you're talking about, not being a deviation from normal health. If you provide optimal nutrition, it works better. And of course, all of this was designed to try to find out if this white box 1, 2, 3 improvements that seem to be like there's an internal intelligence about which is the most threatening type of deviation from normal improves. So let's go to the next slide. Well, I went through the different tabs that we were going, but the first one is how this nutritional technology started, and how Carrington Laboratories raised $20 million to try to develop a new drug from aloe vera leaf gel, because the owner of Carrington Laboratories had a small network marketing company called AvaCare. And in the years 1984, 85, he had 7 different individuals from, importantly, 7 different states send him a card or a note or a fax. In those days, we didn't have emails, saying I was on my deathbed waiting to die from acquired immunodeficiency syndrome that we call AIDS. And nobody knew what caused it. There was no treatment for it, but I drank your aloe vera leaf gel from your little company. And now I'm back at working in school. I don't have the symptoms like I had before. Thought you'd want to know. Well, that's when he came to me and told me this story. And I sat there and listened to him with respect. However, internally, I was saying, because of my drug indoctrination and conventional medicine orientation with all my training, I was thinking hogwash. There's no way that this aloe leaf gel material can do this. This is either a placebo effect or a hoax. Well, I told them they needed to go to a medical school infectious disease specialist, because they had money to pay them, and such a person would be qualified to help them. Well, they kept coming back at me almost daily. He even hired a PhD to be his chief science officer, and both of them started working on me. And so I finally said, okay, I'll do a pilot study. These are just anecdotal stories from different places. We need to have a professional person watch what happens. Well, lo and behold, by giving the aloe juice and finally the aloe juice solids to the 15 patients in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that we could prove had the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome in the laboratory. They improved about 72% in 90 days. And as I frequently say, that was a result that not only proved I was wrong, that it wasn't a placebo effect or hoax, but it changed the course of my personal and professional life. And there's a section here talking about all the research, a combination of all the papers that is a section about why we think this works. And basically, it was found out that, and it was published, that 9 molecules of this acetylated mannose called ace-mannan in cellular synthesis, that 9 molecules in 3 chains are formed to make a domain on the membrane of every cell in the body. And this domain is to foster homeostasis in the cells in their metabolism. Well, if you get homeostasis in the cells of all the organs, you can get a very broad benefit, which this white box effect was designed to try to test, because when all your cells and all the organs are in homeostasis, you do not have deviations from normal. And that would be what we were trying to test for, is could this happen? Let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
This starts the different discussions of the tabs that I've told you before about first the Alzheimer's patients getting their memory and cognition back in 69% of the patients, which this facility, which was the largest retirement facility on the East Coast, had been about 20 years of research in Alzheimer's, and they had never had patients improve memory and cognition. In fact, the drugs that didn't work out and didn't work, all they were designed for was to try to slow the progression of loss of memory and cognition. And we had 46% improved memory and cognition, and 23% did not progress. So that's a 69% improvement over anything they had had before. And I was very disappointed that they didn't continue doing this. But I have told you that here in the United States, it's against the law to improve health with anything but an FDA-approved drug. Well, the Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance companies will only pay for an FDA-approved drug. Well, this is nutrition. And under the existing laws, nobody can get paid for improved nutrition or any preventive health measures. And the next tab about brain damage, I had mentioned it to you before, that these stem cells that are released migrate into the brain and apparently repair and replace aged or damaged neurons that are responsible for memory and cognition. And the quantitative objective laboratory data, you'll find in the paper that the CD, which stands for cell domain, CD14 monocytes, which are plural potential stem cells, increased almost 300%.
Wow.
And then we saved serum on entry and froze it, and on exit. And when the test became available for a test to determine in the serum if brain-derived growth factors were released, even though that the serum was diluted with the entire blood volume, the cell differentiation molecule that these stem cells were not only increased, but were differentiating to become neurons based on this test. Next slide, please.
Can I interrupt you just for a second? We have a question regarding the Alzheimer's, and IM4AM is asking if you can comment on, quote, type 3 diabetes. It's an unofficial term used to describe a proposed link between Alzheimer's disease and certain features of type 1 and 2. Considering that diabetes is a sugar issue and that is a lot of your work.
Well, I have read this thing about calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because the metabolic stress of high glucose causes damages in the different organs, and the incidence of Alzheimer's is increased by the endothelial damage that high glucose makes. And that's kind of, in my opinion, kind of a stretch of the term diabetes. However, it is true that the glucose at high levels is toxic to endothelial cells that line the capillaries of all the organs, including the brain. And of course, these individuals that have the tiny capillaries going to the different areas of the brain contributes to decreased memory and coordination of information. So that's, I think, their rationale on this. And let's go to the next slide.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. Here we go.
Incidentally, my email is capital R, McDaniel, McDaniel, just one, McDaniel, at Wellness Quest, WELLNESSQUST.org, ORG. And if you're interested, I will send you a copy of the published paper for the Alzheimer's, and also a copy of the summary of the paper that was given for the United Nations that calls the bishop from India to come to my office twice, trying to get the funds to do this test of the white box effect, because if the white box effect was real and we could prove it other than just what I had observed anecdotally, it would be a boon to the country, because as he had written in his pamphlet, they just didn't have the money to practice Western diagnostic and therapeutic medicine. Well, this is what I had told you before about the tabs about the cancer treatment by a Mayo trained oncologist, and the basic science research done at Texas A&M School of Veterinary Medicine, utilizing a cell that was notorious called Norman sarcoma, that no type of treatment had affected these tumor cells. And lo and behold, the active ingredient from the aloe, by boosting the body's ability to detect infections, apparently the immune system was boosted to the point that it could tell the difference between a normal cell and a mutated cell that was malignant. And so there was basic science, pardon me, support before this Mayo clinic oncologist saw such good benefits. And then we mentioned that this diabetes 2 improved, and each individual has an onboard monitor, if you will, because if the glucose levels go high, they bind to the stroma of red cells. So you can draw blood, pardon me, and determine the amount of glucose attachment to the protein matrix. There is an index of what kind of damage is being done to endothelial cells. and say in the retina or in the brain or in the heart or any of the nervous system or any organ in the body, it's an index of it. It's called hemoglobin A1C. It's the
Yes.
gold standard for uh, monitoring the damage, potential damage that you can, because at any one time the glucose is going up and down through your day, depending on your activity and what you're eating. However, this hemoglobin A1Cs is on board. And if you go for high for just a short period of time, you'll have more binding. But if you go down to a normal level, it still stays bound to the red cell and it gives you this. But we also, in this, give the anecdotal evidence we had that not only did we have two clusters of type 1 diabetes, that the cause is not all that well known or just or defined, that by giving the alloacemannan, which is antiviral as well as metabolically active to promote homeostasis, that these children eventually started making their own insulin and no longer had the requirement to inject insulin. And this period for reversing and becoming normal again is called the honeymoon period. And that information is in this tab 6. Next slide, please. Uh, I mentioned the individuals that in the study with Dr. Gilbert Cates in San Antonio, where these individuals reverse the objective biomarkers associated with aging, which was done by the two medical schools that I told you about for the public health department when the federal government found out that people were living longer and messing up the amortization tables. But one of these 670 people were a retired dentist in Wichita, Kansas. And when he saw this, he went to the laboratory and gave them a blood specimen, and they measured his telomeres, which are caps on the ends of chromosomes. The 23 pairs or 64 chromosomes in every cell. And this cap of telomere is long in people that live to be, say, 100 or thereabouts or older. And they're short in families that the people die from some chronic disease, say between 55 and 70. But they're also long in animals that have a long lifespan, and they're short in animals that have a short lifespan. Well, this 72-year-old dentist that was in this study found out that his telomeres were that of about a 45, 55-year-old. I sat there scratching my head over this, and at the time I was 81, so I submitted my blood to have telomere assay, and I had been taking the active ingredient from the aloe since 1985, and my telomeres were about a 55, 65-year-old. And this last week, I had my 88th birthday, and many people that know me think I look and act like I'm about 55, 65 years old. Well, we have about 15 assays now. We're doing a study on just telomeres, and we're even finding out, just like Hippocrates wrote before our calendar ever started, he said, if we could provide to the individual the optimal nutrition and exercise, comma, not too much, not too little, comma, we'd have found the safest pathway to good health. Beneath this, he wrote, let your food be your medicine and your medicine your food. Well, I am frustrated or how in the world he came to this conclusion before our calendar started in ancient Greece. But by observation, we're finding out, and now with objective scientific studies, that he's exactly right. And we hope to be able to finish this investigation. And if they say if I can get about 20 or 30 individuals to do this assay, that we will publish it. But that would be giving the basic science for why these 670 people reverse the objective biomarkers associated with aging and their quality of life improved. And then there's the major benefits that we saw in children's. One of the things, and I can give you this boosting of the body's metabolism and of the immune system that we mentioned earlier. That my wife is a physician, and she observed that in 30 years, I had never spent a day in bed or sick from all the different flu epidemics and various viral things that in the community and the hospital to come in contact with. And I call this personal, preventive, and interventional health management. And in these children, we not only had the attention deficit disorder and hyperactivity syndrome improvements, but we had children with bipolar mental problems improve, also autism, and then Down syndrome or 21 trisomy, absolute improvement in their dementia, as well as fragile X boys, that the just incredible benefits apparently from these stem cells. The next slide. I mentioned that there was benefit, and just this last week in the birthday cards that I received, there was one of them in there. A woman said that she had lupus erythematosus, which is one of the serious autoimmune diseases, and that by taking the more comprehensive nutrition built around the active ingredient from the aloe plant, she had now 14 years of no symptoms. And we have in this section of the protocol a paper published about 19 patients in West Texas that had the autoimmune disease myasthenia gravis, which is an auto antibody against the place where the nerve stimulates the muscle to contract, and they lose the ability to contract their muscles in myasthenia gravis. And the incredible benefits of more comprehensive nutrition, that by the end of a year, I think if I recall correctly from this paper, over 80% of the patients no longer needed any kind of medication, and those that were still having symptoms were not requiring as much medication. And this is kind of important because originally all research was designed to try to find something that would be antiviral, which we found out that, lo and behold, by boosting the body's immunity, that any infectious agent was destroyed by the body's innate defenses. But then we started hearing from autoimmune diseases, and also particularly asthma patients and people with allergies improving. And whereas for a period of time we thought we had a incredible immune booster or stimulator, and with these autoimmune cases, this is an overactive immune system. That would be suppression. Well, since both of these things were happening, what we had was, I didn't understand it, was an immune modulator. And if the immune system is overactive or inactive, it brings it to that, what we mentioned before, balance of homeostasis. That if you're in homeostasis, your cells are in the normal zone, and you don't have diseases or syndromes. And that's what this white box effect was designed to detect. And then, of course, very subtle, we have, if you're interested, I gave you see my at the bottom of the screen my email address. If you request it, I have not only this study done in Chicago, but a section of just I think it's 26 papers that have been published that individuals have found out that the brain works better, that the mind, which is a function of the brain, is improved. This function in these 26 papers that, includes the Alzheimer's patients that I told you about and these children with gene defects as well as metabolic insufficiency in their diet causing ADD and ADHD. Next slide, please. I mentioned before about the antiviral activity, which was the original focus of the studies. And not a lot of people realize that our immune system, our host defenses of our body, are divided into two areas, one of cellular defense and one of the serum contains molecules that are defensive. And this is called thymic 1 and thymic 2 testing, Th1, Th2. Well, this boosts both of those aspects of the body's host defenses. And we found out that this active ingredient in the aloe plant was beneficial in not only the AIDS patients, but in hepatitis patients, in Lyme's disease, which is from ticks, which is a very difficult to manage thing. That we even had reports from orphanages and facilities in Africa that not only was tuberculosis attack, but drug-resistant tuberculosis and drug-resistant malaria was a benefit because the organisms with typical antibiotics can develop a resistance to an agent that attacks their biochemistry. Well, this aloe mannan doesn't attack the biochemistry of the infectious agent. It boosts the body's response of hosts against any infectious agent. And we received telephone calls that in Hong Kong during the SARS epidemic that patients they thought were going to die that were very old and very young, within a week, they gave them the active ingredient from the aloe plant and they went home free from symptoms. And of course, this we had experiments done at Texas A&M that the typical models done in kittens for influenza and colds, that if you have it on board in the kitten before you expose them to the causative virus, that they don't get the symptoms. And if they have the symptoms, they quickly improve. And so this is part of why we thought this is of such benefit potentially in the poverty-stricken individuals in India, because, as I say, in the United States, before we had copious benefits of antibiotics and sulfur drugs and such, that infectious diseases were the number one cause of death. And then I have the paper there of the absenteeism companies is cut by adding this to the well, in Russia, they put it in their morning and afternoon tea break. Well, apparently, in some countries, that's a habit that people do, and it also enhanced athletic performance of the Russian individuals with their adaptogen approach, which we found out was very similar in their formulation. In the slides, I have just a lecture just on that shows how there was similarity. And of course, the Russian physician that visited me said, how in the world did just a handful of people and almost no money did you come up with this formulation built around the active ingredient, the aloe plant? Well, I looked him straight in the eye and I said, well, here in Texas, we have a saying, I'd a hell of a lot rather be lucky than smart. And I guess we were just very lucky that, he was amazed that our formulation worked better than their formulation because it was primarily built around plant steroids. And
Mm.
actually, you have to tune human performance if you're going to give steroids, because if you give it too long or too much, you start dropping the ability to perform.
Oh.
Whereas ours was built primarily around the carbohydrate molecule, aloe mannan. Next slide, please. Well, the purpose of that clinical investigation in Kerala was to find out if the white box really existed somewhere besides in my mind, and to be able to produce hopefully a formal manuscript that could be put in an international journal, in addition to be spread to the various clinics in India. And we would hope that maybe with the World Health Organization, we could get this type of data spread to all the countries of the world to increase the quality of life for all individuals safely, effectively, by supporting the engineering and design of life that is coded in the DNA that controls cellular synthesis of the bioactive compounds that carry on the biochemistry of life. And that's why there's so much power in this. Next slide, please. This is an interesting journal, the cover of it from Italy, that was published in Atka Anatomica. And to me, the significance is when I was in medical school in the 1960s, carbohydrate metabolism was just a paragraph in a medical book. My wife's a physician and she went through medical school years later, and there are actually chapters in the medical books now on the role that carbohydrates play in the metabolism of human beings. But in this Atka Anatomica, it even points out, and it's dedicated to the research that's being done on the sugars, which before it was believed that sugars are just burned for energy to make ATP to operate the body. Well, it's the sugars actually serve on the surface of cells to give exquisite function, and they point out that the sperm is attracted to the egg surface by the sugar charges that are on the sperm and the sugar charges that are on the egg, and that the developing ball of cells that become an individual, that they move around to form the different organs based on the charges of the sugars on the surface of the cells. So that's known now that the carbohydrates are much more important in human physiology and biochemistry than once thought. And this journal is dedicated to that. And I used to have a copy of it. I somehow it got away from me, but I have a few pages out of it. Next slide, please.
Okay.
This just points out that a paper was published in Annual Reviews of Biochemistry in 1985 with co-authors, husband and wife biochemistry team from University at St. Louis, and that inside of every cell there is an assembly line. And this cartoon that you see there in color, the cell is what you can see at 1,000 magnification in a light microscope. But everything else there, like the air goes up to the ribosome, and then over to the endoplasmic reticulum, and then to the Golgi, which are different steps in cellular synthesis. And that requires an electron microscope and special stains to even find these. And in the center of this is what's happening at the molecular level at these different points. And what is actually shown here is that the active ingredient from the aloe plant, the acetylated mannose, is processed in the second step there, the endoplasmic reticulum, into three chains that make up a domain for what we said before, homeostasis in all the cells and all systems. And again, when you have your cells seeking homeostasis, you feel better. And if it really works completely, your cause for your symptoms and signs of a disease or syndrome are eliminated. And this is very important because the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994 that was passed, in the original preamble, which is not part of the law, but just a statement of why this legislation was considered and the voting was made on it, it states, quote, the first paragraph, science and medicine have found that optimal nutrition is essential for good health, to prevent disease, and to restore health. Well, I frequently focus on this statement in the preamble is that what we started as research at Carrington Laboratories in the 1980s and continues now is a fulfillment of this legislation that is stated in the preamble. But that's not the end of the story. In the labeling section of this law, it states, and I paraphrase again, that only an FDA-approved pharmaceutical drug can represent or claim to treat, cure, ameliorate, or correct an abnormal health condition. Well, that's not true. And actually, papers are published from various sources and institutes every month that refute what this states in the law, but it is the law. And the company that I was a medical director for paid a $10 million fine because it had nutrients and dietary supplements that were improving health. And unfortunately, the distributors would not listen to my efforts to try to educate them to never use a disease term and to not claim whatsoever to improve or correct abnormal health with nutrition. That all we do is improve the nutritional supply with various dietary supplements and turn it over to the genes. And the genes have the programs as it controls cellular synthesis to correct the cause for deviations from normal. And that's what we're involved in. The next slide. When I was in pre-med and in medical school, I did not understand this equation, V max equal to the substrate divided by substrate plus that Km. Well, this describes this curve that you see here. And as you go in the vertical, it's the cell product synthesized. In other words, what do the cells make in cellular synthesis when a gene is activated? And then you can see how it increases this curve as it goes up. Well, the important thing is that where you see there A and B equals C with a 1 under it is the concentration of nutrients in nature. That you may have several different nutrient molecules in A and several different molecules that are nutrients in B, and together they are reacted by cellular synthesis to make a bioactive compound C. Well, if you concentrate and you give the cells more A and more B, you get more C in less times, that horizontal thing. And this is why, because like in number one, we have diabetics that have non-healing ulcers of their legs and osteomyelitis and other problems, that if you give them concentrated dietary supplement, like in the number two there, lo and behold, it boosts the body's healing processes and defenses against infection, and those sores heal. The circulation to the extremities are improved, and that you don't have to amputate toes, feet, tissue below the knee, and sometimes up to the knee. And that's some of this explains the power of more comprehensive nutrition provided in the diet through dietary supplementation. And with this, there's something that it took me about 10 years after being very active to realize, is that when I was a young person, that most grocery stores were owned by a local family, and they very seldom offered anything in the grocery store that came from more than 50 or 100 miles away. In other words, only during the growing seasons could you get certain things like cantaloupes, watermelons, different berries and fruits that are during the growing season. Well, what has changed? Well, in the year 2024, we have primarily national grocery chains, and we have agribusiness that supplies the different things that are in the store. And lo and behold, a big change has happened. You can have watermelon the year round. You can have cantaloupes the year round. You can have all the fruits and vegetables the year round. How do they do this? Well, agribusiness follows across the continent for the various growing seasons, and they harvest. But unfortunately, because of shipping life and shelf life, they harvest the produce green. And when it's harvested green, the principal molecule in it is chlorophyll. Well, chlorophyll is an incredible molecule in active in photosynthesis, but it is not required by the cells, as we have here this A and B under this curve. Chlorophyll is not any of the amino acids, the fatty acids, the carbohydrates, or the phytochemicals that are used in cellular synthesis for the cell product synthesize. And the big difference is, and the power of dietary supplements is that a plant matured fruit or vegetable that they would have to throw on the ground in the past because it would be rotten by the time it got to the store. Now you can rush it to the freeze dryer, turn it into a powder that can be put into a dietary supplement. And like in conditions 2 here, you can provide the molecules in the plant matured plant, because the nutrient molecules required in cellular synthesis are only made when the genes in the plant start to mature the fruit on the plant. And that's the importance of this explanation of how that assembly line works that I just showed you. Next slide, please. Well, here in Texas, we had a PhD that was strong into his story. It's very interesting how he got into it, but it was at the University of Texas, and he published, I believe, about 10 or 11 books on the power of more comprehensive nutrition. And the title that you see there is the title of the paper that I gave for the own request for the United Nations. A modern dietary supplementation provides promise for an economical and effective means to improve health status of mass populations. Well, the protocol for Carol, India to try to prove whether the white box effect existed or was just a fantasy that I have and just a theory. But Dr. Williams, with his books, the most important was published in 1971, in my opinion, which was called Nutrition Against Disease. And in the first chapter, he says that all my research, about 40 years, and all my books can be summarized in one statement, which I've been trying to get across to you with this presentation. Dr. Williams wrote, "The human body heals itself, and nutrition provides resources to accomplish the task." The only thing I can add to that, that the body seeks with the programming in the DNA of our genes to establish homeostasis in all the cells, and that nutrition is required to find homeostasis. Well, that's the story of this protocol that we wanted to conduct in Kerala, India, and it still remains to be done. It's still just a theory.
Well, I hope that that comes through, and that that isn't just a theory, that you do have the opportunity to complete that study. Just seeing the benefits, you know, the individual stories that you've told over time and how many people have benefited from it, it's really significant. So thank you for bringing us that presentation. I appreciate it. You guys, you can all find a link in the description of this video to order New Eden from Wellness Quest at wellnessquest.org. You can also email Dr. McDaniel. I'll put his email back up if you have some questions about any deviation from normal that he might have a study on. Where did I put his?
Well, I realize that most people just want to know, what will this do for me?
For me.
I spend a lot of effort trying to tell you why it's a benefit to you and why you should improve and broaden your diet and add things that, particularly in an urbanized society, we no longer have family gardens and orchards for most people, and you can, in a dietary supplement, get the benefits. In fact, the National Geographic Society has started an advocacy program from grants that they identified blue zones where people live to be 100 or more years of age and in good health. And it's primarily built around nutrition. And nearly all the individuals in these blue zones have a family garden and orchard. And that's a requirement of the biochemistry, the way the body is organized and designed, that we have to have nutrients to have good health.
Well, I have to agree with you. I'm looking forward to more of that, and you know, we're in this, and you bring up the economic benefits as well with the costs of healthcare and all that, but also just with the inflation and the cost. I mean, my husband went to the store to buy some peppers, green, red, and yellow peppers, and he said, you know, they used to be, I don't know, $4 or $5 for all three or whatever, and he said he spent $9 or $10 on $8.99 on each one.
Oh my!
I was like, what in the world? So we're going to start growing our own peppers.
The next few months are going to be real interesting to see what happens politically in this country.
It is. It is definitely interesting to watch the show, for sure. Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it again. And you guys can find all that information in the description of this video, or go to litecoinlisa.net, and I have links there as well. So I do recommend that you do the auto ship, so that you get, if you sign up for 6 months or more of the auto ship, you do get a free probiotic every month with your shipment. And that is a great
and they also get a 20% discount with the automatic order.
That's right. Thanks, Dr. McDaniel. All right. Take care, everybody, and have a great day.